What's your thoughts, I guess, on Irvine tomorrow and pretty quick turnaround?
Yeah, this is always a very difficult and challenging time of year for our players. Week 16 of a semester. I think the school week, in typical fashion, ends for them on Wednesday. That's the last day of actual classes. And a number of our guys have final exams on Friday of this week. And as you know, a lot of classes now will finish this week where, you'll turn in a final paper or even have a final exam. So that coupled with, I think, the travel, coupled with multiple games, every year is the same story in that, your players really have to remain focused, especially the freshmen. This is a first for them, really burning, the candle at both ends. So we're well aware of that, trying to help them manage their time and at the same time prepare for an excellent team. Irvine, a couple years ago, came into McKale and I thought played as well as any team maybe that season against us, and played a 2-3 zone, very, very well coached on offense, a system team, a team that, when you add up all of their parts, I think, the sum is greater than maybe an individual player is. And that's a real credit to their coach, to their program, but they're a team. They do it on offense, they do it on defense, and I think the unique characteristic that they have, they are big, and I think that's part of their philosophy. But not only are they big, but they have a style that really puts that size to a big advantage. Playing zone on defense, changing sometimes to man. Around the basket, they're an excellent rebounding team, and they have their players really set up for success on offense. They can do it a number of ways. They can throw the ball to the low post, a lot like Gonzaga did. They can use ball screens. They have three-point shooters. And the other thing that I really like about them is they play their bench. 6, 7, and 8, 9 guys, whoever plays, each game they get in, and you could tell that they improve because of that. So I think it's going to be a great challenge for us. Any team that we play is going to be a great challenge, especially without Parker and the limited numbers. And, those are our circumstances, and, it's up for us to improve and find a way.
Did you get a more defined timetable on Parker has the swelling gone down where you can define it to 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever?
Yeah, I don't know, 2 months, I guess. 8 weeks.
So that puts you pretty well into Pac-12 play, probably. So.
Yeah.
Has that changed any of your thought about how to, approach the next month while you get ready for the conference?
It's like putting the ATM card in, and just if there's none in there, here we go. We're going to make the best of it, figure it out, and that's what we're doing. We're figuring it out, and we're making the best of it. And where you have a lot of players that, they came to Arizona to have big roles, and believe me, every one of them does right now.
Coach, if you've had a chance to look at the Gonzaga tape, what were your takeaways between the first half and the second half, and especially how you guys dealt with the zone?
Yeah, not surprising, but, the disappointing part of that game is in a number of areas. One is just our start. We were apprehensive at the start. They were very, very confident. They were ready. I don't want to say that we weren't ready. We were ready. I think we were a nervous team. We were a team that was unsure of itself. Anytime you have to call a timeout a couple minutes in, I'm not doing that just because they made a couple shots. I'm doing that because it doesn't look right. But if you really think about who walked out there for us, that was the first time that they have ever walked out there together. It's in L.A. in the Staples Center. There's 3 freshmen and a group of guys that have really never been there together. So that start hurt us, though. We dug ourselves a hole, and if you think about being down 12 points at the half, we were down 12 points within 3 minutes. So really the last 15 minutes of the first half, it was an even game. Besides that start that I just talked about. The other thing sometimes that happens with younger players, if a couple 3-point shots go in, their answer is to just worry only about that guy, only their man. So, in other words, coach, he's not going to make any more because I got him. Well, there's a lot more on defense than just defending your man. And all of a sudden, when you watch a big guy like Karnowski, and really, if you think about our schedule, he's really what I would call the first really good low post scorer we played against. We played against some good teams, but like a traditional back to the basket center who can score. So with that, we elected not to trap. He's such a great passer. And on our end, we're so inexperienced trapping the post that I think they would open the floodgates up even more. But we definitely wanted to provide more support and help. But when you give up those early threes, you're a young player, you're more tentative. And we really did a poor job as a team helping out inside. I mean, if you let Karnowski take 3 and 4 dribbles to score, he's going to make 8 or 9 field goals, and that's what he did for us. In terms of the zone, no question, we didn't look good. Sometimes you don't look good when you're not making threes, when you're 1 for 12 from 3 or whatever, 1 for 8 from 3. You can be a really good zone offensive team and not make a bunch of threes. But we weren't a confident group, and again, kind of back to that start, we had guys in roles that have never been in those roles before, and we played lineups more often. We had guys, for example, Kadeem at the 1 this year, although he played a lot of point guard a year ago. In games this year, he's really played just a few minutes each game at the 1. Parker's been our point guard, and ditto across the board for every player in the game. So I think that we'll be a little bit more sure of ourselves moving forward, better. Certainly that's our job. My job is to get our team locked in, more organized. But that's the problem when somebody gets hurt in a game. Nobody stops to let you fix it. You go from one game to the next day to the next game to the next game. And a lot of times you just haven't had the opportunity to reshuffle the deck. And that's our case. Today's practice is big because even since Gonzaga, it's the first time that we've been together. Yesterday was a day off.
Fine line, though. You emphasize that first 4 minutes a lot, I know, and you also had that problem first game of the season, Michigan State. How do you get them locked in without talking to them so much that they tense up?
Right. And, we've had teams that I think all of us look back on and say that was a really good college basketball team, and we had these same issues. Sometimes it happens at the beginning of the season or maybe once conference season starts. There are teams that at home really get off to good starts, but on the road don't seem to be that team. But I think it evens out over time. We have a lot of first-time starters. I mean, if you go across, Doosan, Lowry, Raleigh, Kobe, that's 4 of the 5 have really never started in college before. So I think the more they get used to going out there, the better. We've also had some good starts here. Once Parker and we started to get some games under our belt, for example, Texas Southern, I thought we did a really good job. Even Butler, they scored against us, but we scored against them. So, but you're right. The Michigan State game in Hawaii being down by, 17-2, and then fighting to come back and win, and then, even Gonzaga. But I liked our fight. The one thing that, I always try to look at is our effort level. And, for the most part, those guys really hung in there. Kadeem Allen gave some great effort. I thought his effort level really stood out. And Keanu and him, those two. And the other guys did as well, but I think those 2 guys really laid it out there for us. And that was a big reason why we got back in the game. We got a lot of second shots, played with tremendous heart, hustle, and that's what this team right now needs to do. We have to be the harder playing team because depth is not in our favor.
You talked about it before, about Kadeem not being that type of vocal leader showing it on the court, but is there anybody else who will pick up the mic and sound off when the team's down like that?
Yeah, the thing about leadership, and this is my take on it, sometimes those guys who appear to be the leaders, to somebody who's watching the game on television or in the stands, that his teammates really don't think that he or they are the leaders. Just because you slap the floor, beat your chest, say things are verbal, doesn't make you the best leader on the team. All of us have experienced those that lead every day by example and effort. And although they're not the rah-rah guy, they quietly get their point across. And that's who Kadeem is. Some of the other guys are just going to have to grow into that. You know, we talk all the time that you're not allowed to be a freshman right now, and you're not allowed to foul. Those are two things that we really are emphasizing and guarding against. That you know, college basketball is littered with great young players, and the days of you having to be an upperclassman to be a leader are over. We just happen to have a senior who is one of our leaders. In Parker, you know, he's somebody that I think was growing into being a more vocal leader and really helping out with Kadeem. But he's not out there on the court right now, so there's only so much he can do.
When you talk about the schedule and turnaround, and you have this unusual scenario where you're out on the road with 4 weeks in a row, 5 out of 6, and would you have done that without charters? I know you charter, you've talked about that helps you getting back, especially. I didn't know if that's, you know, become a bigger thing that you guys have that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the investment that we have made, you know, in our program. I mean, I know I've said it through my time, but you know, it separates us, and then sometimes it puts us on par with a number of others that are doing that. You know, I obviously speak to Xavier and Dayton a lot because, you know, Chris Mack and Arch both were on our staff, and you know, I really admire how those guys coach in their respective programs. But you know, Xavier's playing at Colorado, and they're going to charter out and back because they want to be great. That's all part of it. It's not necessarily that, you know, your players get the whole road to themselves or, you know, or luxury, as much as it allows you, like you had mentioned, to maximize your time and to maybe do some things that you otherwise would not do. But yeah, our schedules have fallen a little bit awkward in that, you know, we have a lot of weekend away games or neutral games. That's just, sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. But I think all those remain some great tests for us. You know, what we experienced going to Hawaii as the opening game was a great challenge. Learned a lot about our team, left with a win. You know, Vegas playing against a really quality upper class team, experienced team in Butler. Didn't execute down the stretch, but I think learned a lot. Gonzaga obviously speaks for themselves. And, you know, I think this week, I'm going to start with Irvine. They're a really good team. I think they're on the upswing. I think they're better now than maybe they were a couple weeks ago. And then, you know, headed to Missouri this weekend. You know, that's an SEC opponent, and it's a long way from Arizona, so we have to be ready there too.
That's what I was wondering though. But having that ability, like you said, to charter, especially a game like Missouri coming up, where you have it not only road games every week, but this is not an easy place to get to. You guys go
Right.
in, you probably be home for dinner Saturday night, right?
I don't know. Hopefully we can get back, but you know, especially with our guys' academic agenda. I mean, when you consider that a lot of those guys are studying right now around the clock, finishing papers, getting ready for final exams. You know, this weekend is crucial for any student at our university, and our players are no different. You know, if you have a big test on a Monday, you know, you're really relying on the weekend to prepare you for that test. So, you know, being able to put them in a good position to do both is, I think, sometimes the responsibility that we have, and I think that, you know, that responsibility will be met.
One other thing about that, just when you talk to the coaches, do you think it's, especially on a high major level, is it becoming a standard that everyone gets a charter when they have maybe a tougher, especially when you have a game like Missouri or something?
I think so. Yep. Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot about it a lot. You know, as a conference, I think everybody realizes the advantages across the board, and you know, one of the advantages is just you just don't get beat up physically and mentally as much as you would have if by the time you get to February and March. And if you think about, you know, when you want to really be healthy and at your best and be a team with no regret, you know, you want to be at that month, at that point, your best. And this building process, October all the way through, the way you travel, you know, how you go about your practice, how you choose to go through a non-conference schedule, all of that really impacts your success at that point.
This doesn't really apply necessarily to Arizona, but I'm just curious, how do you coach a shooter who has an unorthodox shot? Do you attempt to tweak it? Do you, depending on mechanics, what do you do? How do you coach that?
You know, I think that, you know, What we try to do a lot of, and this stems from my dad as a coach. I think sometimes high school coaches are the best at teaching shooting because, if you think about who their audience is, who their students are, they're catching guys from 8th, 9th grade. And, my dad always would have the philosophy, once somebody gets into the 9th grade, if they love the game, you're not going to be able to change their shot a whole lot. And his reason is because, every time that they're on their own or playing in the pickup game, they're going to revert back to what they're the most comfortable doing. So it's a really crucial time in trying to get the fundamentals straight. So with that being said, once they get here to college, I think we have a good sense of their shooting mechanics. But what we really try to focus on is their footwork. We have a number of freshmen right now, if you watch them shoot every day, they have a really beautiful looking shot. They can shoot it. There will one day be a time when they'll be an excellent shooter. But in games, when there's 5-on-5 and the ball's moving and they move, they shoot 3 or 4 different ways. They're never on balance. And that really is about footwork more than is your elbow out. Once they come to us, maybe we can get their elbow in a little bit, but it's pretty much made in steel. What you can really change and what they start to see is the value of their footwork, where you want to shoot it the same way every time. If you have good balance, then I think you improve as a shooter. And that's one of our challenges with Kobe. I think that he's a much better shooter every day than maybe at times he's been in a game. But if you really look at his shots, he's not on balance on a number of his shots. He just has to learn to settle and shoot it the same way every time. And that comes with experience. But, right now, obviously, experience isn't in his favor.
Is that something that you leave alone during the season and maybe try to work on in the off season?
Yes, and, we do a lot of work behind the scenes. Guys want to come in on their own. Sometimes it's with our graduate assistants. Sometimes it's with an assistant coach. Once we get into the school year regular practice where we're able to have, our 20-hour weeks, there's plenty of time to carve out individual time. And that's usually a time where we'll spend.
Coach, what are the benefits of, besides the competition of playing at a neutral site as opposed to a home-and-home series that you see for the program?
Well, we would love to have more home-and-homes. Next year we have a home-and-home beginning with UConn. We'll return a home-and-home with Gonzaga, not next year, but eventually we'll do what we did, last year and the year before, which is McHale and at the Kennel. And we're looking to add those right ones. Unfortunately, there aren't as many takers as maybe there was 10 years ago or 5 years ago because there are so many more neutral site opportunities. And I think if you just look at, for example, Kentucky or Kansas, they're playing more and more neutrals. And every time that they decide to play a neutral game, it makes others do the same, and it takes away opportunities for home and away series. And as you know, it's not like everybody's chomping at the bit to come to McHale, especially, the East and Midwest. It's not easy to get here. And we're trying, though. That's something that we want to get back to. This year, it's just how it fell. But I think the opportunities to be in Texas and Houston, in L.A., then playing Gonzaga and Texas A&M make a lot of sense, and not having to worry about returning the game. And then, I think it was more of an obligation and something we really wanted to do, going to Hawaii to play, the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, playing a quality opponent like Michigan State. So it was more a function, I think, of opportunities that all happened at once. And I know it's not as traditional of a non-conference schedule, but I think when 13 games have ended, I think there'll be plenty of quality. And that's probably the most important thing for us, that we played a quality, balanced schedule and allowed our team to grow, and at the same time challenged ourselves in a number of ways. And I think we're moving through that period of time right now.
College basketball environments, by and large, are what make college basketball, home court advantages and things of that nature. Do you think the neutral site is kind of hurting college basketball?
Yes and no. A game like Michigan State in Hawaii, of course not. I think that you don't want to play just anybody in a neutral site, but I think the location of the game, who your opponent is, if the choice is not to play them at all or in a neutral site in back-to-back years, I think it's something that we have to consider, just because it's not us that's changed, it's really the game. the industry, college basketball. And like everything, what used to be isn't today. And scheduling, especially in non-conference, is much more difficult today than it would have been 5 years ago or 10 years ago, right when I first came to Arizona. But that doesn't mean that we're still not going to have marquee home and away matchups. Like I said, we have UConn. We're getting back to Gonzaga. We're in conversations with some others. But the neutral part is something we entertained this year because a lot of others are doing it.
You're looking to going to Grand Canyon. Pitino had some pretty high praise for what they faced on Saturday. Have you looked into going up there at all?
Well, we play them this year for the first time, and but yeah, I mean, we respect them. Dan Marley, obviously, a tremendous player and doing a great job with their program. But we're going to play them then. I think once we get through this year, then maybe we'll revisit that.
I think without asking about Alonzo's status, I was just curious. He went to that game in LA, didn't go the other two trips. Any reason why he went last weekend?
Yes, he was permitted to go on this trip by the NCAA. He was not prior to this weekend.
What was that? Is that a good sign, maybe?
No. The only good sign is when he walks out there and plays.
I was wondering, there was a little minor buzz about DeAndre and his visa. Were you guys aware of that? Does that mean anything, or is that
He's fine. Yeah.
I mean, you still fully anticipated being here. I mean, it is high profile and
Yeah.
marketable as he is and all that.
What were your thoughts on that story? Because that story seems to take place on its own.
That's not up to me to comment. That's more about his family. But he's fine, all set, doing well academically, and trying to finish his senior year of high school. When you're a talented high school basketball player, an All-American status, your senior year is tricky. You just think about what practice is like for those guys. It's just, I remember, if you're a Division I basketball player and you walk in a gym in a high school practice, depending on your high school, I realize, but you're the best. Sometimes you're not even challenged. But somebody of his size as well. So, being able to finish his senior year in a positive way and have a great year, I have no doubts he'll do that. Number one, he's doing a great job in school, and we're excited to have him as part of what we're doing in the future.
With having all the foreign players that you have you ever dealt with visa issues before, and how much do you know about things like that?
I don't know anything about that. Yeah.
Looking ahead, I know it's your focus obviously Irvine, but Missouri just in general, kind of a long rebuild there, it seems like, Cam Anderson.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at those guys a whole lot. Obviously it's just, it's hard in college basketball. You sign up for that rebuild, and not everybody's going to stick around to rebuild. So, we're not rebuilding, but certainly we reload every year. I mean, when you're bringing in 5 per year, and you would look at your program as being successful or thriving or competing, for top prizes, and that's what you do. All of a sudden, you take over the rebuilding job. How do you do that? It's so hard right now at every level too. I mean, if you did the same thing at James Whitford went to Ball State, you take over a situation and need some rebuilding. Same thing. It's not like you just. One year you had that class, they all become sophomores, recruited again, now you have your team. Well, a lot of times those guys, they leave, there's unexpected things. At his level, the best player on your team may transfer up. So, I think it's so much of a 1 year at a time deal now.
You guys had them here last year. Based on playing them, seeing a Kim Anderson team, what can you tell us about what you thought about what they're like on the court?
I haven't watched them at all. I mean, I'm just coming off the heels of Gonzaga, and our focus right now is UC Irvine. We have our hands full tomorrow night. We have to play a great game. Our crowd has been nothing short of spectacular since I've come to Arizona, and many years before that. And we rely on them. And in the state of our team right now, there's no team that we've had here at Arizona that isn't going to rely on our home court more. I mean, we need every advantage we can get, and I think that we're fully expecting a great game tomorrow night in a battle. And today's practice has to be great, and we're going to get ready.
What are you looking for Chance to work on the most right now in this crucial stretch?
We need Chance to play well. We need all 7 of those guys to play well. And I think the more game experience that Chance gets, the more he'll play in a game like he practices. I still think he's working his way through, wanting to do well, knowing that he's a much better player now than he was a year ago, or my goodness, 2 years ago, that he's worked hard, harder probably than he ever has worked in his life. And, you want it to click. And at times, a couple things haven't gone his way, and I think it steals his mind. And that happens with younger players. But the biggest thing initially here is, Chance is getting a lot of offensive fouls in the post, some foul screening, and if they're turnovers. And if you look at turnovers per minute, that hurts our team, because one of the things right now is, being able to play like the second half against Gonzaga, where we played with 3 turnovers, playing a game in single digits. That's what our team needs to be able to do, and I think our big guys have as much responsibility as our guards. If you get a couple post players turning the ball over, offensive fouls, it really can hurt your turnovers in general. Everyone thinks guards when they think of turnovers, but bigs can contribute to that as well. So I think initially here, him cutting down on some of the things that he's learning that he can't do in a game, and then, rebounding, defending, scoring in the post. The last play he made against Gonzaga, which was maybe one of the biggest field goals we scored on Saturday against them, a left-handed jump hook. We see that every day. And I think it's just a matter of time before he's more comfortable and playing well. But he's an important part of our team right now. He's playing both the 4 and the 5. There's a big responsibility with that.
By the way, does Irvine play different than you remember them with Mamadou a couple years ago?
No, they have a very similar system. Zone and man split, probably more zone than man, especially against us. And really just a great offensive scheme where they set a lot of ball screens. But like I said, they'll throw the ball in the post and really throw it in there consistently if you don't do a good job. So based on us against Gonzaga, I think that's something we have to be ready for and much more able to execute in terms of us defensively.
So does it seem with Raleigh, you kind of look up and, whoa, he has 15 points. Do you get that same feeling as well?
Raleigh's doing well. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the luxury of playing alongside some older guys that Raleigh has to play great every game, every possession right now, and it's hard to expect somebody who just got here to do that. He's going to have his ups and his downs, but his work ethic, his attitude are outstanding, and he was one of the bright spots on Saturday's game. His offensive rebounding, being able to score in double digits, and he's getting better. Defensively he still makes mistakes, but I'll tell you, he's a far cry right now from where he would have been a month ago as a defender. And I think the good news is he'll only continue to make that jump. By the time we get into Christmas and second, third week of January, I think he'll take another step on defense. And obviously our team needs him to, because he's out there for 30+ minutes right now.
Thanks.